Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Elliot, Gregory Doyle, and Paul Kelly. This is the big fight breakdown video ahead of the big rematch between Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall, taking place in Leeds over 2 years on from their first fight in Glasgow, in which Josh Taylor controversially was awarded the victory. Chaps, really looking forward to this one. We love a grudge match here. We've seen famous ones over the year, whether it be kind of Froch versus Groves, James DeGale versus George Groves, plenty more to mention as well. And this is right up there. It's a 50-50, so looking forward to seeing what your predictions are as we're only a couple of weeks away from the fight now, as well as your opinions on a couple of other factors. We're going to discuss first what sort of fighter Josh Taylor still is at 140 pounds. He looked awful when he made weight for the first fight against Catterall 2 years ago. A lot of people thought he lost that fight. He then looked quite a bit better on the scales when he fought Teofimo Lopez over a year later, but lost that fight as well. The weigh-in hasn't happened yet, so it's a tricky question to ask. He looks in great shape from what we're seeing on his social media, but I do want to know whether we can still expect an optimum Josh Taylor this time around. Elliot, I will go to you first. Give us your thoughts.
Thank you for that, mate, for that introduction. I was hoping you wouldn't come to me first, but here we are. I think little jab to the solar plexus. And to be honest with you, I think it's actually a very tough question to answer because obviously Josh Taylor, he's had, I suppose, fairly high profile distractions outside of the ring as well. I think, but like you said, he looks in fantastic shape. He really does look in fantastic shape looking at his socials. I think he's motivated for this fight. I think he should be motivated for this fight, and I think that is showing. I think it's hard to sit here and go to really criticise too much about a loss to Teofimo Lopez, considering the sort of quality of fighter he is, which is distinctly better than the fighter that Jack Catterall is. So for me, I think we can. I'm not going to give a prediction. I'm trying very hard not to give a prediction away, but I think we can expect Josh Taylor to maybe not, have hit the height of the kind of Josh Taylor that we saw against the likes of Prograis and stuff like that down at 140. But I think we'll see a better version of Josh Taylor this time around than we saw in the first fight against Jack Catterall, 100%.
Yeah, and look, not forgetting he's achieved undisputed status in this division. You can't really achieve more than that. But at the same time, he's arguably lost his last two fights. Um, so look, it's going to be really interesting. Paul, give us your thoughts. What can we expect from Josh Taylor? Should Josh Taylor be at 140? What do you think?
I think Josh Taylor's days at 140 were dead a long time ago. I think he's completely dead at the weight. Yeah, he does look in good shape, and he's a diligent professional. He probably will make weight. Like that would be my prediction right now. I would expect him to make it, but he's struggling. I don't care who you are. If you've been in that weight division for your whole career and you're into your 30s, you're like that is tough to make that weight. It's just really, really tough. And I think it is detrimental overall to your engine, your punch resistance, your overall performance. So yeah, I think that Josh Taylor should have moved up to welterweight in my opinion. Maybe just straight after that Catterall fight even. So yeah, I mean that's where my head's at with it. Fair play for him wanting to right the wrongs. I suppose obviously, although he got the decision, everyone knows he didn't win that fight. He probably knows deep down himself as well. So he's wanting to put that right, and I do take my hat off to him there, for wanting to put that right and settle the score with Jack Catterall, so to speak. But for me, is days at 140. I don't really think. Yeah, we should be seeing him fight at 140 pounds. It must be so difficult for him to make it.
Yeah, it was. I think I don't know about you guys. It was definitely a shock to me when the fight got announced. My first thought was, "All right, it will be at a catch weight, right? Or it will be at welterweight." When I saw it was at 140, I was really surprised. Greg, give us your thoughts on is how much of a good decision is this for Josh Taylor to still be campaigning at 140? You could say if he fights Jack Catterall at welterweight and beats him, he's maybe not going to get the credit he would get if he beats him at 140. Maybe that's the reason for him still fighting at super lightweight. But what do you make of Josh Taylor still being at 140?
It's a tricky one, Elliot, because like the guys, I think Josh Taylor should have moved up a while ago, but I think one point that we can't skip over, Josh Taylor chose 140 in this fight. It wasn't put on him that he had to. He chose 140, and I think that we shouldn't look past that. he'll know himself. He'll know his own body to a certain extent. For me, yeah, I would have liked to have seen the fight win 4-4, for example. But if Josh Taylor has chosen 140, I think we need to give him respect as a man, that he knows what he's doing. But for me, whether it's a great decision or not, I'm not so sure.
No, no, no. Good point. Greg, I'll stick with you. That first fight, I believe, was February 2022, so over 2 years ago now in Glasgow. Um, we all know kind of what happened. I'm sure most people who are watching this video watched the first fight. We all did. What are your memories and what can you take from the first fight? I know Josh Taylor kind of got dropped in that fight. Um, did end up winning it, but a lot of people thought he was very fortunate to get that decision. What can we take from that first fight, Greg?
I think Josh Taylor just completely overlooked him, Elliot, if I'm being completely honest. You go from the glitz and the glam of fighting Ramirez in Las Vegas, fighting Regis Prograis, all these kind of big fights. You're competing for title after title, to defending your crown in Glasgow with the greatest of respect against Jack Catterall, who it was a fight that he had to take. It wasn't a fight that there was a lot for him to gain. So if I'm being honest, Elliot, I think Josh Taylor looked at Jack Catterall and thought, I've fought so many better fighters than you, and I just really need to show up.
Yeah.
And it was a bad attitude to pay for. Sorry, yeah, he paid for it, and I'd Catterall win the fight. I don't think I had it as wide as a lot of people had it, but it was definitely Jack Catterall's fight for me.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, what are your thoughts? I'm sure you were watching. We all know kind of if there's boxing on Saturday night, you're going to be watching. So give us your thoughts of that fight that happened over 2 years ago.
Yeah, I did watch. Yeah, I watch a hell of a lot less boxing now, to be honest with you. But anyway, no, I did. All seriousness, I was watching that fight. Like Greg said, I think Jack Catterall won the fight. And you can't sit here and ignore it, even though it was it's going to be 25 months, whatever it is, since they were asked in the ring together. You still have to look at that because they're not going to have changed much stylistically. You're kind of fight the way you fight most of the times. And yeah, I think that Catterall won it. It wasn't completely one sided. Taylor did win rounds, but the fact that it was in his hometown, he did get a hometown decision there. Let's be honest. But yeah, I think you do have to read something into it. But again, they've both had fights since. I don't think Jack Catterall's looked particularly great since, in my opinion, against Linares and Dara Foley, for example. People might disagree. And then obviously Josh Taylor didn't look great at all against Teofimo Lopez. But then you're talking about a Teofimo Lopez that on his day could
Mm.
probably beat anybody at 140 pounds. So yeah, you do have to read something into it, but it was a long time ago, as you alluded to.
Yeah, it was a while ago, and look, we just I think Greg mentioned there, like there's a good possibility that Josh Taylor, sorry, overlooked Jack Catterall, and that was part of the reason why we got. And there's a kind of a separate question here in terms of asking how good is Jack Catterall, because when you take away the Josh Taylor fight, Jack Catterall's best win is possibly what O'Hara Davis. So it's hard to talk about how good he really is if he's kind of a top 15 fighter or a top 5 fighter, where he is in his on the kind of on the spectrum of rankings. Elliot, we'll finish off with you. I remember you did the reaction video that night with Lawrence. Thanks for staying up that night. Really appreciate it. What are your memories of that night?
I had a great night with Lawrence, obviously. Check out the content on the channel for that. But I think, yeah, I actually have to fully agree with Greg, man. I think Greg gave an eloquent answer to the question. I think I fully agree with him. I think Josh Taylor looked straight at Jack Catterall and thought, "I'm better than you. I fought better fighters than you." And to be honest with you, he's right. He's right in thinking that. I'm not surprised he thought that. Frankly, I don't think that's an incorrect impression that he would have had going into that fight. I was a bit surprised, to be honest, during it, that even when it was kind of going against him, though, like the sort of latter rounds in that fight, he looked dead, didn't he? Whether it comes down to the sort of weight or not, I was a bit surprised his conditioning actually down the stretch in that fight. Similarly, a little bit with Teo Lopez as well, a bit surprised at how he sort of is fitness in that one as well. But for me, I still looking at the first one thinking that's Jack Catterall's summit. Jack Catterall's coming in there with a massive opportunity, really, really motivated. Josh Taylor wasn't motivated in the same way. That's all I really kind of take from it. And with those sort of differentials, maybe that gap between talent was kind of narrowed a bit. But I do think it's simple as what Greg said. Simple as that. It's just he just overlooked it. Frankly, come to those massive nights and like you say in Vegas, to come to a fight, you don't necessarily get you up for it in the same way, and that's what happened.
Yeah, well, look, I'm sure he won't overlook Jack Catterall this time. We should expect a better version of Josh Taylor this time. Paul, I'll go back to you. Josh Taylor is a former undisputed champion. Jack Catterall still hasn't become a world champion, whether people like it or not. Will both or either fighters become world champions in the future? This fight, of course, is not for any titles. Josh Taylor we're probably expecting to move up to welterweight after this fight. Jack Catterall has got some very tough fights at 140 if he's going to become a world champion at that weight. Do you think both or either of these fighters will become world champion in the future?
I'm just going to say straight off the bat that I can't see it, unfortunately. No matter what weight that may be at, but welterweight's a stacked division now, and if you're a Josh Taylor, you know, in the latter stages of your career, fighting these boys who are like you're on Ellis's of this world, for example, you know, I wouldn't back Josh Taylor to win that fight at this stage. Similarly, at 140, which is where you would expect Jack Catterall, win or lose, to campaign at, going forward. Yeah, it's another division where you just think like, would you, you know, we just saw there obviously, um, in April, we saw Devin Haney lose to Ryan Garcia. It depends whether is Ryan Garcia going to fight at 140. That's a tough fight for Jack Catterall. Devin Haney still staying at 140. That's a tough fight. There's so many other fighters there as well at 140 pounds, and you're like, that's such a tough division to win a world title in now. Fair play to Josh Taylor for becoming undisputed, because it's a hell of a stacked division right now, and both super lightweight and welterweight. So unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong, but I unfortunately can't see either man going on to become world champion again in Josh Taylor's case, or for the first time in Catterall's case.
Greg, do you agree with what Paul's saying there?
To a certain degree, yeah, I do. But what I do think is that between this fight and when a world title fight comes around for either, the belts are really shaky at both weights. I mean, Devin Haney's got to keep his WBC for how long until the pressure takes over, and you know the governing body might have to make a decision of why is he keeping his title if he lost, albeit Ryan Garcia came in overweight. But it's a tricky one, because there's certain guys at 147, like for example, I think the fella's name's Stanios, good fighter, but I think he's kind of, I don't know if he's got a vacant title shot or he's just won the title. These guys are beatable, but like Paul said, if you're looking at guys like Devin Haney, you're looking at Boots Ennis, even Matthias that holds the IBF at one foot. They're hard fights, man, like really hard fights. So I think their best opportunity is if a title becomes vacant. It's possible, but with the talent that's coming through, even in this country, like Dalton Smith, I think it's going to be a hard task for both boys to pick up a world title in the future. Yeah,
Yeah, and I just want to make it clear, like this isn't discrediting either fighter. I think just sometimes winning a world title, it's about timing. No disrespect, but like if you look at Rocky Fielding as an example, Rocky Fielding won a world title. It was down to timing and who he fought at. I can see Elliot Good laughing, but it's down to timing. You can fight a certain fighter at a certain time and win a world title. Whereas if you're trying to win a world title at 140 now, it's going to be very difficult. Elliot, give us your opinion. Do you think either of these guys are going to win a world title in the future?
You know, I know you just said we're not discrediting you. I'm about to discredit someone, I reckon. I think we're going to go. I think out of the two lads, I think Josh Taylor has actually maybe a chance. I don't, to be honest with you, think Jack Catterall will become a world champion. I think almost like, you know, the kind of John Ryder approach, like his night has been and gone in some ways in that respect. But I do think with Claire, like Greg said again, and kind of combining what both guys are saying, I do think clever matchmaking, maybe if you can maybe pick up a title or pick up one of those sort of vacant shots for Josh Taylor is more likely. Obviously not going in with the likes of sort of Crawford and Ennis, no. But equally, I'm discounting him at super lightweight as well. I think Taylor should move up rather than sort of, you know, compete down there. So that's the likely route for me. If either was to win a world title, it'd be Josh Taylor at welterweight, with some sort of clever matchmaking. But yeah, I don't see Jack Catterall becoming world champion, no.
We shall see. Look, it's hard to look past this fight because you're not sure what both fighters are going to have left after this fight. We're not sure who's going to win, and we're not sure what weight divisions they're going to be in. So it's really hard to say who's this guy going to fight next, and could this guy fight this guy for a world title next. One thing I would say is if Jack Catterall wins, he's so well ranked within all the governing bodies, he could be in a good position to fight for a world title in the next 12 months, but we shall see. To finish off, gents, as always, we are going to do predictions. Really looking forward to this. Josh Taylor, the last time I checked, was a very slight favour with the betting platform that I use, but very slight. So this really is a 50-50. It's a tricky one because you might go for Josh Taylor now, and then when you see him looking like rubbish at the weigh-in, you might change your mind. So it is a really tricky one. Predictions do change, but we are doing predictions a couple of weeks away from the fight. Paul, go to you first. Josh Taylor or Jack Catterall, repeat or revenge? Let us know.
Man, I have no idea. I'm going to say a draw. I genuinely am being deadly serious. I can make a case for both men. I don't see Josh Taylor being as bad as the first time. I don't think he'll overlook him this time because he knows what he's in with. But still think that the weight will be an issue and he might have struggled with down the stretch. I could see Josh Taylor being in a lead and then Jack Catterall winning late rounds, but not being able to get him out of there because I don't think he particularly wigged very hard. But yeah, so I'm going to go for a draw, mate. I can see you the disgust in your face there, but yeah, I'm sitting right in the fence here.
You're in danger of not being on one of these calls again, Paul. So we're gonna try that one again. How well do you think? What do you think Josh Taylor's going to look like on the scales, though? How? Cause like, do you think he's going to look? Do you think he's going to really struggle to make 140, and that's then for they're going to have an effect on whether he wins this fight or not?
Yeah, I do think he'll struggle. Which is, I think he'll make the weight, but I think he'll struggle. Which is why then come fight night, I think he'll maybe slow down as the rounds go on. As Elliot alluded to earlier, you know, kind of down the stretch, looking like he's just almost he has nothing left. Energy levels are really low. Which is where I think Catterall can maybe pick up late rounds. But I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor was in an early lead.
So, gun to your head, are you going for Jack Catterall?
No, I'm going for a draw.
Okay, we'll move on.
Bold prediction,
We'll
that's a
move
bold
on.
prediction.
Okay. Typical bottle job. Okay, Elliot Grigg. You're not going to go for a draw, are you? Who are you picking to win this fight?
No, to be honest, mate, I'm quite confident in this. I think Josh Taylor is going to beat him quite handsomely, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'm going to go points just because, I look at Taylor. I think Catterall will make it difficult. I look at, the sort of fights that Taylor's been in, Baranchik points, Prograis points, Ramirez points. So I don't necessarily think he's going to go in there and stop Catterall, but I think he's going to beat him. I'm talking sort of like 8-4. I think Catterall will pick up rounds, but I think it's going to be fairly convincing Josh Taylor victory. But I'll tell you something I'm also going to finish on here. What I would be doing if I was Josh Taylor is I don't even think you get down to 140. I think you see what Ryan Garcia did, mate. You just go in, look, I've got down to 142, whatever. And if you want me, this is the closest you're going to get me. I'm not going to go for another training camp. I'm not getting down there. And I think Catterall will take it. I think Catterall's so desperate for this fight as well. You get down to that sort of weight and he'll go for it, whether you pay a fine, whatever. Don't boil yourself down to 140 if you don't have to. Go in there about 142, 143.
It is a topic for another video, but I am a little bit worried about a kind of like a culture starting where fighters just say, no, fuck it, I'm not making that weight. I'll come in a bit over it suits me.
Think how long Catterall's chased him, man. How long Catterall's chasing him for years for this. Yeah. He goes, look, I'm at 142. You take me on a Saturday, you never see this fight again. What are you doing? Catterall's taking 100% in my opinion.
Right, we'll discuss it another time. Greg, we've got 1-0 to Josh Taylor and a non-prediction from Paul. What are you going with?
I'll tell these guys, I'm going to go on a little bit of a fucking rant here because I've been keeping it together when it comes to this fight, but I'm super pissed off. I've never made it. I've made it clear I've never been Josh Taylor's biggest fan as the person, but the fighter, I'm a fan. What Josh Taylor has accomplished is unbelievable, and I've never seen a fighter who wins undisputed status get so through under the rug in this country, and it makes me so angry. Really does. To answer your question, I get a bad gut feeling about the weight and Jack Catterall and everything, but do you know what? I'm one of these guys, I don't go with national pride, I never have, etc. This time's different. I'm going Josh Taylor. I've never wanted someone to win a fight more than I want Josh Taylor to win this fight because I am sick of the disrespect that he's got for this fight, for getting forgotten about for what he's achieved. So I'm team Josh Taylor in this fight, and I think we'll go to points. I think it'll be close, but I can see Taylor win.
No, fantastic. All right. Reputation on the line. I will finish off, gents. I am going to agree with both Elliot and Greg. I think Josh Taylor, I think he looked good on the scales against Teofimo Lopez. I think he's had a lot of time to prepare for this fight. It's not forgetting this fight's been postponed. So he's had plenty of time. He's had more time to make weight and get in shape. And I do think the best Josh Taylor beats Jack Catterall 9 times out of 10 for me. So I'm going for Josh Taylor. I think he'll do it on points. But yeah, that's my prediction. So we will see. Paul, Elliot, and Greg, great to speak to this one about you. Possibly the biggest fight night we're going to see in the UK this year, taking place in Leeds, May 25th, live on DAZN. Thank you all very much for your time.